Hello and welcome to day 2 of the International Women's Day Caribbean Tech Summit. We had an awesome day yesterday where we were talking about what it means to dare to be, right? We had awesome discussions around the importance of launching your community in terms of your MVP in your product. We talked about impact-led partnerships beyond borders, right? So change, advocacy, collaborations, partnerships for good of society and community. And we also had an amazing keynote from our very own Anushka talking about her journey as a woman in tech Caribbean, how she created, maintains opportunities, and so much more. Awesome start to our summit. Today, we're going to be talking a bit more on the climate change side, right? So we're going to be talking about sustainability, technology, etc. And we have another amazing lineup today, and I'm really excited to, announce our first speaker. Her name is Amanda Ramdas, and just a quick bio. She is a fifth-year PhD candidate in biochemistry at the Faculty of Science and Technology at the University of West Indies, St. Augustine. Her research interest lies in the application of biomedical and molecular biology tools for studying genetics of hydrocarbonoclastic microbes. Did I botch that word? I think I did. Yes, her Bachelor in Science is in Chemistry and Management, also at the University of West Indies, St. Augustine. And she held a position as a Junior Research Assistant and Chemistry and Biochemistry Lab Demonstrator. She's certified by the American Heart Association in First Aid, CRPA, and AED, which is something very important to her. And in her life outside of campus, she loves to spend time with her 4 dogs and participate in outdoor activities. She has been an active member in the charitable organization of St. Vincent de Paul for the past 15 years and counting, and was a volunteer for 2 years at Horses Helping Humans Hippotherapy, or therapeutic horseback riding to children with autism and special needs. How amazing is that? I've actually never heard of therapeutic horseback riding. Have you? But yes, let's welcome Amanda to the stage today as she talks about microbes in remediation technology and commercial products.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone.
Welcome, Amanda. Stage is yours.
Thank you very much. I'm delighted to be here. So let me just get right into it. And I will start sharing my screen. Can you see my screen? It's on full display.
Yes, we can see it.
Do you see me as well or no? Okay. So again, good afternoon to everyone. I'm delighted to be here. My name is Amanda, and as mentioned, I'm a PhD candidate in biochemistry. So I'm honored to share with you today a technology that provides new strategies for remediation of major pollutants in Trinidad and Tobago and the region. A technology that is sustainable, can lead to significant reductions in carbon dioxide emissions, and address numerous SDG, the Sustainable Developmental Goals set by the UN. So, why are oil spills important to address? Crude oil is labeled as having negative impacts on the environment, and the methods currently used come with their own suite of negative impacts, and the cost to clean up spills and oily sludges can get really high. On top of those cleanup costs, oil companies must pay fines and compensation and they need to do a lot of PR control to not lose the trust of people. On the operational end of things, oil companies suffer massive financial losses from clogged pipelines when oil buildup occurs. So Trinidad and Tobago is the largest producer of oil and natural gas in the Caribbean, which makes us no stranger to oil spills and their negative impacts. Pollution occurs inland and offshore, and the spills have been reported in hundreds over short time frames. One major impact is the toxic effects on humans. Harmful compounds, especially the BTEX compounds, which are benzene, toluene, ethylbenzene, and xylene, and PAHs, your polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, which are just a big fancy chemical name for a seriously horrible group of ringed compounds. So there are concerns with respect to direct exposure and indirect exposure, and basically every major organ in the human body can be affected. Cancer, various organs of the body. We have respiratory issues, skin and scalp issues, lungs and fetal developmental issues, all critical issues that must be addressed. In Trinidad, such effects have been highlighted in international research papers. Residents frequently report being sick, and we had the case of a 4-year-old boy who fell into a river on his way to school, a river that was contaminated from a leaking oil well, and he was almost completely submerged. Then we also had the case of two teenage boys who fell into a sea and their father had to rescue them. And this animal here also fell into the sea and died. And died. So the current physical and chemical methods used are expensive, they are energy intensive. Physical methods merely shift the pollutant from one site to another. Not all oil can be removed in many cases when you use these methods. So the use of these methods are not sustainable, and they also cause additional or a different form of harm to the environment and to humans. For example, the use of chemical dispersants contaminate groundwater supplies, and the use of co-exit, which is the most widely used dispersant, apart from it being proven to be toxic, um,
Sorry,
is still
Amanda.
used.
I don't want to cut you off, but you have to share your presentation. I think we're still on the main. Yeah. So now you can just share it. I mean,
I,
it's shared, but like you have to put it in theater mode.
I did.
Ah,
Is it better now?
yeah,
No?
yeah. We can see like the entire application, like the PowerPoint.
No, I had it. My entire screen shows my entire slide.
Ooh.
Is it showing in, like the entire slide now? The entire screen?
Yeah, I mean, we see like the actual PowerPoint
PowerPoint?
thing,
No.
which is,
Mm-mm.
I'm not sure what's happening with that.
I don't know. Let me just stop sharing.
Yeah, let's try it again.
So I click on share screen.
Mm-hmm.
Share screen.
Yeah, on the present.
Share the window or the entire screen? I'll just share the entire screen.
Okay.
Maybe that might make the difference.
Let's see how that looks. Oh, perfect. Okay, sorry. Continue. This is great.
Would you like me to start over or no?
No, no, I think
Okay.
we're following along. It's fine.
Okay.
I think it might be worthwhile as we're planning to redistribute this later on for you
Okay.
for you only like a few minutes in. I think we missed like 4 slides.
I could
Um,
send it.
we want to make sure, yeah, we want to make sure that your clip is good and ready for all of our amazing post-show audiences. So please do
Start
start over.
over.
Yeah, the content is amazing. So definitely, I'm sure our audience is willing to stay and bear with us as we get through this because it really is amazing. Thank you so much, Amanda.
Thanks.
Not a problem. Starting over. Can you see the entire screen is covered with the slide?
Yeah, we can see everything now. It's perfect.
Great. Okay, let's start over. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm delighted to be here. My name is Amanda, and I'm a PhD candidate in biochemistry. I'm honored to share with you today a technology that provides new strategies for remediation of major pollutants in Trinidad and Tobago and the region. A technology that is sustainable, can lead to significant reductions in carbon dioxide emissions, and address numerous SDGs, which are the Sustainable Developmental Goals set by the UN. So, why are oil spills important to address? Crude oil is labeled as having negative impacts on the environment, and the methods currently used come with their own suite of negative impacts and high costs to clean up spills and oily sludges, and the cost of oily sludges can get really high. On top of those cleanup costs, oil companies must pay fines and compensations and do much needed PR control to not lose the trust of people. On the operational end, oil companies suffer massive financial losses from clogged pipelines when oil buildup occurs. Trinidad and Tobago is the largest producer of oil and natural gas in the Caribbean, which makes us no stranger to oil spills and their negative impacts. Pollution occurs both inland and offshore, and spills have been reported in the hundreds over short timeframes. One major impact is its toxic effects in humans. Harmful compounds, especially your benzene, toluene, ethylbenzene, and xylene, or your BTEX compounds, and your polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, which is your PAHs, which is just fancy chemical names for a special horrible class of ring compounds that can cause serious damage. There are concerns with respect to direct exposure and indirect exposure, and basically every major organ in the human body can be affected. Cancer, various organs in the body, we have respiratory issues, skin and scalp issues, issues of the lungs, fetal development issues. All critical issues that must be addressed. In Trinidad, such effects have been highlighted in international research papers, and residents frequently report being sick. We had the case of a 4-year-old boy who, on his way to school, fell into a river filled with oil from an abandoned well, and he was almost completely submerged. Right? There was the other case of 2 teenage boys who fell into a seep, a natural crude oil seep, and their father had to rescue them. And the animal here was also submerged and died in the very same seep. The current physical and chemical methods used to clean up oil spills are expensive, they are energy intensive. Physical methods merely shift the pollutant from one site to another and not really treat it. Not all oil can be removed in many cases. The use of these methods are not sustainable and cause additional or different forms of harm to the environment and humans. So, for example, chemical solutions contaminate groundwater supplies, and the use of coexit, which is the number one chemical dispersant, apart from being proven to be toxic, is still used. And coexit actually makes you glow in the dark. So these are the legs of a student in ambient light, which is normal light. And then we have a look at it under UV light. And we see that UV light actually makes the student glow. And this is not a wanted state to be in, even though it looks really cool. So we have entered into an era now of major social, technological, economic, political trends that could reshape the environment in which oil and gas companies operate. Sustainable development becomes a need for economic growth of any country that allows the use of natural resources such as crude oil with minimum damage to our environment. Optimism, regarding those resource abundance and profound technology innovations are leading to sustained lower prices and a focus on cost, efficiency, speed. All of this creates a tight loop of sustainability. So what do we do to solve these issues? More importantly, WWOD. What would Obama do? Obama's take on the issue was that we get rid of the old and bring in the new, that we can protect our environment and promote economic growth at the same time, and do so using new technologies, science, research, development, and discovery. Now, I have aimed to give Trinidad a chance to join the rest of the world in using innovative solutions backed by sound scientific principles. I present a bioremediation technology that addresses the issue of oil pollution and the use of microbes and the enzymes to clean up crude oil in any environment, whether it be soil, water, pipelines, or valves in industry. The research I've conducted over the past 5 years, have made use of modern laboratory methods to study and exploit the use of microbes to offer a sustainable, efficient, cost-effective, environmentally friendly solution to address the issue of oil spills. In Trinidad and Tobago, this is especially important since we have over a century-old history in the oil and gas industry and experience spills every single day. So let me just break down a few terms now that I've been mentioning. The oil that I've been referring to is crude oil. Crude oil is also called petroleum, and it comes from deep underground and it forms naturally from decomposed prehistoric animals and plants. The color of crude oil can range from clear to black, and the consistency from very watery to thick, and is made up of thousands of complex chemical structures, many of which are toxic or harmful. The components of crude oil um, are a great source of energy, not only as fuel to power the internal combustion engine, but also as food for microbes. And it is not surprising that microbes have evolved the ability to use oil as their food source. In other words, to metabolize the compounds for energy and use them as raw materials for growth. Think of it as the same way as we humans eat food to basically grow and survive. What do I mean by microbes? Microbes are tiny living organisms that are found in nearly every environment and make up much of the biomass on Earth. When we talk about microbes that clean up oil, I'm primarily talking about fungi, yeast, and bacteria. And they break down oil into harmless carbon dioxide and water. Apart from oil or petroleum products, these microbes can also degrade other priority pollutants. So they have added benefits. Bit of a fun fact. When we compare our existence to microbes on Earth, humans make up just a mere 0.01% of life. There are more microbes in a teaspoon of soil than there are people on Earth. So take a minute to just let that sink in. Another neat little fact is that the microbial cells on the human body, microbial cells outnumber human cells in your body by a ratio of about 10 to 1. So when we think of microbes, we usually think, oh gosh, they're harmful, especially given COVID and this virus, right? But most microorganisms or microbes actually don't cause any harm at all. And in fact, they are very helpful and help you to digest food and protect against infection and even help with your main reproductive health. So let's define another term, bioremediation. Bioremediation is a branch of biotechnology that employs use of living organisms in the removal of contaminants, pollutants, toxins from soil, water, and other environments. Bioremediation has been deemed the choice method to clean up oil spills. Advances in understanding bioremediation have been rapid due to advances in scientific techniques, or rather technologies. One such technology is genomics. Now, we must all be familiar with genomics in some form, as we've all watched CSI or Criminal Minds or some crime show where DNA was always analyzed to identify a criminal. And we know also like the different test kits that they have now, like from ancestry.com, to determine your history. So in the same way, you could think of it as this is what I study, the DNA from microbes, using genomics to get a full picture of a microbe's remediation processes on a metabolic level. And this insight is what provides mechanisms that we can use to define novel or new strategies to clean up oil spills. We can develop efficient bioremediation protocols tailored for specific sites by using those microbes that are best equipped to remove oil based on the findings through genomic analysis. Genomic analysis also allows for the identification of new microbes. And through my research, I've identified novel, never before reported microbes right here in Trinidad. So when you study microbes, like we have done from extreme geological locations, over time they really evolve these special coping mechanisms to survive the harsh conditions that they are under. And this is what gives them their novelty, their uniqueness to be used in bioremediation strategies. So, just a side note for my general audience, don't get scared by this very complicated scientific infographic. It's just here for to look good, and for if I have a scientific audience, they might appreciate it more. Um, and just to give you, I wanted to show you some of the data that this tech can produce. And I know it may seem very foreign to you again, and if you are not in the field, but I wanted to expose you to something new and exciting today. So this is what a map or blueprint of an organism's entire genetic makeup looks like, and it's called a genome. So if you were to sequence your DNA, you would get a map as well. And Ancestry.com will basically look at it and tell you what you're made up of, where you came from, if you have any genes that cause diseases, etc. And in a similar way, I comb through the genome of microbes to get a full picture of what they're made up of, what their potential is. Another exciting diagram, and this is just to show you how complex these metabolic pathways are in these tiny living organisms. And this is just a pathway map for degradation of oil and industrial chemicals. So within the organism, this is the map where everything is connected fit to be able to basically eat oil as food, metabolize it, and survive and grow. And what we do as scientists is sit and look at each one of these little lines and these dots, which are stop points, to determine this microbe's value in remediation strategies and if there are any valuable enzymes as well for industry. So if I focus there on this one line, point A to B here, and that is a pathway and genes involved for the degradation of one specific compound, you can see that you could blow it up into this big diagram here. Again, no need to understand these crazy pathways and these these horrible, scary words, but just appreciate the beauty of microbes and nature's solution, how complex, but it was given to us as a gift. And at the end of genomic studies, data from a microbe can be summarized in this diagram. And what you are seeing here is an entire cell of a microbe and its functions to really survive polluted environments. And it does so very well. And the data we generate for use in bioremediation strategies and potential enzymes for use in industry come from this cell. And this is one single cell and it's doing all these things. So many features just working to ensure survival. So we have taken all of this genomic data and designed our technology so that oil removal translates to lower operational costs. Our tech is 10 to 25 times cheaper than the current methods used, high efficiency. Our tech outperforms foreign products by 30 to 50%. The tech is environmentally safe. We leave nothing bad behind when these enzymes are used in industry. They could also lead to significant carbon dioxide savings and energy savings. Operations are made easy since there are no need for specialized training or a large degree of human effort. So we have spent the last 3 years as well using high-tech tools, including artificial intelligence, to discover and explore the potential of oil-degrading microbes outside of just using them to clean up oil spills, a potential that spans a wide consumer and industrial base. And you can see I have some of the industries labeled here. So think of agriculture industry, seed protection and growth stimulation, biopesticides, biofungicides, things some cheese. That's very important to use microbes and their enzymes to enhance flavor in cheese and other dairy products. In textiles, the clothes you're wearing right now, microbes and their enzymes are used to enhance dyeing ability of fabrics, cosmetics. I hope everybody had a bath today. So your cleansers, your soaps, your shampoos, all of these have microbes that are used in industry, in your everyday products. So when these microbes are used, as I mentioned before, they can lead to significant carbon dioxide savings. And just to give you an idea of it, when a specific enzyme called a biosurfactant or lipase is used in the leather industry, the global potential savings is actually estimated to be 8 million gigajoules of energy and 700,000 tons of CO2 a year. To give you some perspective, that saved CO2 emissions would be equivalent to the annual load from 75,000 world citizens, or you could think of 170,000 cars. So our research has really, we wanted to provide science from Trinidad for Trinidad. Trinidad and Tobago has a unique biodiversity and is a hotspot for microbes with tremendous biotechnological potential. To give you a look into our microbes that make oil disappear in just 3 days. So this is the tech firsthand in the lab. And at the energy conference that we attended last year, the Trinidad and Tobago Energy Conference, companies were really interested in our library of oil degraders and were eager to know if we were investment ready. So that really made us take a look at the competitive landscape in Trinidad, and there's no other tech like this that we could find. There is no other microbe or microbial product in the global market that can compare to our local microbes. As I'm speaking about markets, let's have a look at these markets. The market for bioremediation in 2022 was estimated at a whopping 13.82 billion US dollars, and it's actually projected to reach 33.51 billion by 2032. Our number one competitor is North America, but there's plenty of room for us in the market. And fungal remediation being a sector with large growth, our technology falls well into here because we focused on fungi for remediation, and we have identified novel fungi to be used in remediation strategies. Advances in the field of bioinformatics and biostats are major factors that are driving this market and revenue growth, and keeping up with them is actually one of our key business activities. So that was the bioremediation market. Looking at the enzyme market now, so if we use these enzymes from the microbes, they fit into US $9.8 billion market as valued in 2019, with a projected amount of 16.69 billion by 2027. Our number one competitor, of course, is Asia Pacific, but there's room for us in the market. And our microbes actually produce enzymes that can be used in the food and beverage sector, which is one of the key drivers for growth in this market. So the presence of high opportunities in an untapped market such as that of Trinidad and Tobago and of developing countries is expected to drive market demand of this product. And microbes have dominated the market share by 60.7% due to low production costs and the ease of availability of this technology. So I wanted to take a moment to make special mention to patents. And this is extremely important for any inventor, anybody with a novel technology. It's filing for a patent for your idea or product or solution is a good plan, since a patent is a tool that not only shields your innovation from being copied, but also helps you to leverage your idea to monetize it and reap maximum financial benefits. With a patent, you will have all the rights to your invention. So for my technology, I would have examined existing patents to see if what I was working on was indeed a new invention. Was I really contributing to society? It is also important to look at the trends and know your value, to know the value that your technology holds or will hold. So the top 3 pending patents were bacteria enzymes, and fungi. And of course, over the years, we see an upward trend in the filings for these patents. And these are the 3 that we actually focus on. The cumulative number of patents on bioremediation is increasing yearly, as I mentioned. So the top countries that are filing for these patents are China, this is China, and the US. And the patents are filed for continuously over the past 2 decades, which indicates, yes, there's growth, there's continuous growth in the market. And what's exciting is that when I did my searches, we have, again, isolated, discovered new microbes never before reported or patented globally. Okay, so the sustainable developmental goals are very important when you're designing technologies now, and there was a call for them to be integrated into a lot of the countries for the next decade. My technology fits into sustainable goal 6, 7, 9, 11, 12, and 13. And just to give you a brief idea of how it fits in the SDG number 6, by 2030, they want to improve water quality by reducing pollution and minimizing the release of hazardous chemicals and materials. SDG 7, by 2030, double the global rate of improvement of energy efficiency. And also Sustainable Goal 7.8, to enhance international cooperation to facilitate the access to clean and renewable energy and energy efficiency, and advance and cleaner fossil fuel technology, and to promote investment in energy infrastructure and clean energy technologies. Sustainable Goal number 9, the development of quality, reliable, sustainable, and resilient infrastructure, including regional and transporter infrastructure, to support economic development and human well-being. And then also a sustainable development goal under 9.4 is to make industries sustainable with increased resources with increased resources. The technology also addresses the climate action, sustainability, developmental goals. As such, the use of the bioremediation technology leads to significant reduction in carbon dioxide emissions, as well as life on land. The technology addresses that, and with the aims of course, improving the quality of environmentally sound management, and getting rid of chemical waste and all waste throughout their life cycles to significantly reduce their release into air, water, soil, and soil. So the technology really, when we did it, at first we didn't really think about these sustainability developmental goals honestly, but as the research progressed and we had a look at it, then we realized that we were already doing and working on a technology that had these goals in mind. So that's really good for Trinidad and Tobago. So in the past 2 years, we've gotten global and local validation while trying to do outreach for the technology that we have worked on for the past 5 years. We've secured over 120,000 TT in grants to conduct research, and we have validated our data based on our research being published in internationally peer-reviewed journals, and being reviewed by experts in the field globally. We've also gained recognition of excellence by the US Department of Energy for our technology. We got the opportunity to present our research at the American Association of Microbiology in Washington, D.C. last year. I've had the interest of an accelerator company that would have seen us at the energy conference last year. We also were selected as one of the top 5 most innovative projects by the Energy Chamber in 2022. And yes, that's me, the shortest person in white on stage there. And upon invitation by the president and the CEO of the Energy Chamber of Trinidad and Tobago, Dr. Thackeray Driver, he gave us, we gave an exposure of our tech in the Energy Now magazine. And just recently, I was the winner of the World Intellectual Property Office Appropriate Technology Competition, where I presented this technology. And I had to pitch, do an entire business pitch. So you could think of Shark Tank. So to end, I would just like to give you a view of my laboratory where I work, my biochemistry research lab. This is me in the lab, um, what a typical day looks like, and um, microbes in their raw forms and under the microscope that I look at on a daily basis. Uh, My supervisor, Dr. Sefa Rampasad, has 17 years in this field of research, and she was recently recognized as one of the 7 scholars of the world by Stanford University, ranking in the top 2% of her discipline globally. So another powerful woman in tech, and I've been working alongside her for about almost 6 years now. So I would just like to thank, of course, um, give my sincere thanks in ending today's presentation to the University of the West Indies and all the support offered by the various labs and their assistants, to my past co-supervisor, Professor Adish Ramsabag, and of course my supervisor, who's a giant. To her, I give my deepest thanks. And in her more than capable hands, she has genuinely and consistently guided me and helped me to surpass a lot of my fears and achieve more than I could have envisioned for myself. To my family and close friends, um, you will never know how much you appreciated. To my darling dogs, you have brought me endless joy on this journey. And Abba, thank you for everything. So this is just a quick view of my dogs, my biggest support system. And I would just like to thank you very much for listening in today. And I look forward to any questions that you may have.
Such a boomer thing. I was on mute. I was just saying thank you so much for that. Firstly, congratulations on all that you've achieved. I think it's so fantastic when you were showing us the photos of your laboratory and stuff. I was like, I wish more girls, more young girls would see this, because you are a scientist creating real life changing, world changing solutions. And that is amazing. So congratulations for the awards and all of those cool things. So I have, well, I'm going to let the audience maybe post their questions, but I also have a few questions in mind. So I understand that it's a big industry, a booming one, and there's a lot of potential there as well. Why aren't we seeing a lot of these solutions in areas primarily in the, I guess, in the Caribbean, near Latin America, where we do see a lot of oil spills, etc.? Oh, you're on mute as well, by the way.
Okay. Could you see my screen okay?
Oh, you want to share a screen? Yeah, we could.
No, I wasn't sure if it was interfering with the video.
Yeah.
Okay, so why aren't we seeing it? A major factor why bioremediation technology hasn't taken off in the Caribbean is funding. It takes initially massive investments, and I think it's been really difficult to attract funding from I would say international organizations, private sector, because they themselves have their projects going on and their own $1 billion investments, and I mean US $1 billion investments in the tech. So in the Caribbean region, especially, we haven't really um, had the capability to have those massive investments to get the technology where it needs to be. So that's why it's not like predominant, but I would say that they do have companies and small groups that do perform research in bioremediation, and they do their own little pilot studies that nobody hears about. So it is happening, but unfortunately it's a lot slower than those big um, countries that have the funding to back them.
So where did you find, I guess I would say, like your PhD program, these grants and etc.? So Crystal basically asked in the chat, what more grants would help with the advancement of this tech, right? So you already kind of answered it halfway, but how did you find, I guess, your community of people interested in this topic as well?
Yes, at UE we're very tight for funding, but there are small grants available to I would say a master's or PhD student. So there are grants that we apply for. And honestly, we have been able to, over the years, just use this small amount of funding to work magic. Um, because that's what we have to work with and we make do. And if we are to get extra help, of course, that means collaboration. So we've actually collaborated with other labs outside of our biochemistry lab. And I was fortunate to have, um, my co-supervisor at the time, Professor Adish Ramsabag, and his support financially as well for other resources that I would have needed, that I didn't get from, these little grants that I did, to conduct my research from UE.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, so I'm curious to know, like, what is it that made you interested in this specific topic? So I guess the cause of the result of microbes, or the advantage of it, is that it helps with oil spills and all that stuff. But why, I guess, microbes in specific? Like, why? How did you get into this topic? When did you know that this is what you wanted to study further?
Right. So I was actually transitioning from a chemistry and management degree. And one of my lecturers from undergrad, she offered me a position for a research assistant in biochemistry. So it was a steep learning curve for me. But within the first, I would say, less than a year of training under her and the exposure to the projects that I had to work on as a research assistant, one of them was the microbes in remediation. And I remember, the same video that I played in my presentation, when I first placed a microbe on the plate and it was completely black and drenched in oil. And I left it in a cupboard and you come back after 2 days and all the oil is gone. You're like, holy moly, how did that happen? And I guess it just all went from there to figure out on the most biological level, um, how does this happen? How does it do what it does? And how can we now use this to help society? And not only that, for, as I mentioned, as the research progressed, how could the research benefit Trinidad on a wider level? So economically, if we market our microbes and market our enzymes, we could make a lot of money. $1 billion industry.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you actually, what is like your future goals and plans with this research and project? I know you kind of mentioned turning it into a business.
Yeah.
So if you could talk more about, I guess, what more you want to find out from your research, etc.
Right. So I would say the early phases of research are pretty much done. We spent the past 5 years doing it. And I would have mentioned that I did the appropriate technology competition. And that's what really gave me a extra push, to think about this technology actually becoming a business and them providing me with the tools to make that, a reality, or to at least start the process. And that's what I've been doing with them since January to date. We have courses that are continuing even after the, competition, um, with the business hatchery program in Kariri, with other mentors, with other consultants, in innovation consultant as well. So them combined, we're in the initial phases now of figuring how to take the research from lab to market. So that's where we are right now.
Yeah. So since we are, this is like International Women's Day thing. I was just curious, like, as a scientist, right? Was it difficult to get in your field, and if so, did you face any specific challenges?
I don't think it was difficult to get into my field. Um, well, I guess I would say biochemistry is we think of it as an elitist group of really smart people. But I would say hard work also is a very big key component of that. And that's how I think I was selected for this program. That I just really put my all into it and show that I could learn and um, you know take on this line of work. Biggest challenges. Um, In this research, I would say, just like for a lot of other females in STEM, confidence, that was a major one. I always felt like I suffered from imposter syndrome. And, we need to remember that no one is an expert in the beginning. And that is why, we have processes that we must go through, and mentors and supervisors that are there that we need to use and make the most of um, their instruction along the way. And then also a big one too with that imposter syndrome is taking a seat at the table, literally. So we tend to, like, as women, line the back of the walls of a conference or meetings or whatever we have, and we let the big boys and the big executives and the males take up all the space at the main tables. So we need to learn how to insert ourselves as well. That extra boost of confidence, and it's something that we must always work on for ourselves, and then also to, I guess, pass on to others to help lift them up. And I mean young ladies in science in particular.
Absolutely. I'm happy that you mentioned, having a seat at the table, having your voice at the table, as well as just taking ownership and credit of what you've done, basically. So,
Yeah.
would you say that you're doing a better job at it now? And if so, what are some things that has helped you to really be just confident in yourself and the work that you're doing?
Um, for sure, I always have a chat with my mentor. He really, if my mind is like all over the place and my emotions are all over the place, because it doesn't matter what event or what project, I always get nervous, I always get anxious. So talking to my mentors has been a huge thing for me. um, for anything that I do, talking to my mentors really helped me a lot. Also taking a step back sometimes, from the work, from whatever you're supposed to be doing, that helps as well. Yeah.
Yeah, those are actually really good stuff. And once again, it's always the importance and power of a community, right? So just people there that can actually even speak up for you, right? Not speak up for you, but like talk about your accomplishments in a room full of other people. So that's things like that are so important as well. Before you go, I'd like to just ask one last question. What is one small act that we can all do to protect, for example, our waters, the best that we could, and or in our environment or ecosystem in general?
In general, I would say small acts make a huge difference, because there's so many people on earth that if every single person does something small, it would make an impact. So, in terms of our water, keeping our soils and our air clean, I would say think about on a daily the amount of waste that you generate, the choices that you make. Um, Always think about the environment, because we are nothing if the earth perishes.
Awesome. That's an excellent way to end it on, especially as we are talking about sustainability and climate today. Thank you so much, Amanda. Once again, let the audience know where they can find you if they want to just reach out or have more questions. So, yeah,
Okay. Thank you very much for having me.
awesome. Thanks, Amanda. That was amazing. Yes, Crystal, I enjoyed this as well. So, we are going to move on to our next speaker, which is very funny because just the other day I was on Twitter and I literally tweeted, is there any way to upcycle carnival costumes? Because it is kind of carnival season in the Bahamas as well. So I was really curious to know, like, what are people doing, if they're doing anything? And funny enough, our next talk is exactly about that perfect timing. So I want to introduce Danny. Danny is a Howard University student. How Danny is a student at Howard University School of Engineering. She's a graduate student and sustainability professional with proven leadership and entrepreneurial skills. At Campbell's Soup Company, Danny managed multi-million-dollar sustainability projects and launched a sustainability engagement team. As a co-founder of Carnicycle, Danny consults with Caribbean stakeholders, promotes environmental awareness, and has received recognition for her achievements, including a Best Sustainability Business Pitch Award. Danny also freelances as a green operations consultant for small businesses and holds certifications in Lean Six Sigma and UNDP Sustainable Project Management. Danny is a sustainable fashion ambassador for Remake and is committed to promoting sustainability and environmental awareness in inequitable communities through her faith. So today, let's welcome Danny to the stage as she talks about the overall process and what it means to create a more sustainable carnival. Welcome, Danny. Welcome.
Hi, how are you?
Good, good. Excited to hear about your talk, especially because I really want to know how we can create a sustainable carnival. It's something that happens every year in various countries in the Caribbean and beyond. So definitely something exciting and relevant for many people.
Thank you. I'm really grateful to be here and I'm excited to share. I do have a presentation that I just wanted
Absolutely.
to present. Awesome. Okay, let's jump right in. And also, just quickly, it's really surprising, or not surprising, but really cool. I think the universe tends to align, or maybe like Google just knows our thoughts. But whenever we're thinking of something, it just pops up on our feed. And so it's cool that you found us. Hi, everyone. It's really nice to be sharing my lightning talk on creating a more sustainable carnival. Like some of you, um, carnival is significant to me in a cultural, economic. You see those hairdressers and makeup artists, or even a creative context like the designer on the screen, or all of the above. And so the commercialization of our sweet, sweet carnival has brought many opportunities for business and tourism, but it really hasn't been done in a sustainable fashion. So at the end of 2018, when we asked ourselves the question, where do carnival costumes go? And after a large survey that we shared with our network, we were surprised that many masqueraders, including myself, have thrown away our wearable pieces of art. And so, with the results of this survey, it became the catalyst that created Carnicycle. And over the next 5 years, minus COVID, we would have gone on to researching and implementing ways that Carnival can become more sustainable. And today we will share some of those solutions and also future solutions that can be implemented and applied. But first, want to just give a shout out to our team because not one person can do it all by themselves. I'm Danny McCutchie. I am the CEO and co-founder. I co-founded Carnicycle with Luke Harris. We met in high school. We've been friends from way back. And we also have a team of expert advisors helping us with marketing and communications, Millie Morgan, business development, Denise Carew, and then partnerships with Matthew Desant. Okay, so let's jump right in. We work on making Carnival sustainable in two separate spaces. The first is in Carnival fashion, so that's your Monday wear, your Juve wear, and of course your costumes, as well as fetes or events, which includes fetes, but also road parades such as Juve and Mass. Starting off with Carnival fashion, we're going to go into costumes because Carnival costume recycling has been our largest initiative to date. Carnival costume recycling is the process of capturing used and unwanted carnival costumes and then breaking them down into its raw materials, which include feathers, gems, plastic sequins, and also synthetic textiles. Through this process, we're able to take these raw materials that were destined to the landfill and we're able to divert them from the landfill waste and put them into the hands of creatives that will use them. This includes local artisans such as jewelry designers, but it also includes international people in similar creative industries like the burlesque industry, the samba industry, as well as even people who go to rave and EDM concerts. All of them use some of these similar materials. And since we've collected them, we've been able to donate to some of those uh, organizations or companies or individuals, and we've also been able to sell them in order to help sustain our business. So, what's really the environmental impact of costumes? So, when we're talking about a single costume, it may not seem like a big deal, but when we're talking about 50,000 costumes for maybe Trinidad Carnival or 300 to like um, 500,000 costumes within the North America and Caribbean region combined, when costumes are discarded, it creates a big problem. Um, First of all, most of our costumes, due to commercialization of Carnival, are imported now and are no longer made and assembled locally. With that being said, they're being imported from China. And not only China, but also India and Bangladesh. Those are the three most top manufacturers overseas. And with that being said, you're getting a lot of carbon emissions that are harmful for our planet through the transportation of these costumes from all the way from China or India to Trinidad and Tobago. And then you're also um, contributing to the exploitation of garment workers who are not being treated or paid fairly overseas. And all of that just so we can wear a pretty costume that is being thrown away. Um, and while, there may be just one direct line of transportation for our bras and underwear, when we have other adornments such as animal feathers, ostrich feather, yes, they're real. It has even a longer route of transportation because most of the ostrich feather farms um, in the world are sourced from South Africa. So it goes from South Africa to China to the US because in the Caribbean, we have strict laws of importing animal products, including feathers. And then after it goes to the US or Canada, it goes to the Caribbean and then it ends up on our streets. So you can already tell how big of an issue it is when we just throw it away. And then you also lastly have the sequins, which are small microplastics. And when those ends up on the street after the parade is over, they can end up in our sewage and then eventually end up in our oceans. And microplastics in our oceans has been a huge problem because they're entering the space of our fish and ruining the biodiversity as the fish ingest it and they die and it causes a chain reaction. And sorry, this was. And so to date, we have recycled over 1,500 costumes. So kudos to everyone who has recycled with us and our network who has helped us recycle this much costumes. And although we recycled this much costumes, it's really just a fraction of what we can recycle or what can be reused. To put in context, so based off that survey we took when we first started Carnicycle, about 40% of participants said they threw away their bras. And so if we multiply that just by the 50,000 people that are estimated to be playing in Trinidad and Tobago Carnival, we get 7,800 bras that are estimated to be thrown away. What that converts to is 64 vehicles in a year that could be driven, or 35 people's homes that could be powered for a year that are essentially just being thrown away in a landfill that is most likely overcrowded, like the ones we have in Trinidad and Tobago. And so while we have collected, and we're really proud of that number, 1,500 costumes being diverted from the landfill, there is so much more opportunity out there, and there's so much more impact we can have. This is a lightning talk, so I'm just going lightly into other solutions. So other solutions that we believe that exist out there that could be replicated in the carnival fashion space is one, peer-to-peer carnival costume sharing. So they're like basically online thrift stores where I can upload pictures of my clothes that I want to get rid of and sell them. Basically, they're secondhand marketplaces. And so in this way, I'm not going and throwing my clothes away, but selling it and actually getting money for it. So once a user is done with their carnival costume, we believe they can, get some money back from the $1,500 to $1,000 that they've spent, and then someone else gets to wear it for a future carnival or carnival event or fete. Another solution is actually, more systematic. So instead of, having new designs at every single carnival, and, there's over 100 different carnivals slash carnival events in over 50 countries. So instead of having that many designs, we have designs that are used across multiple carnivals. And in order for people to get money, we have a royalty kind of system. So just like music has royalty every time it's played, every time a design is launched or relaunched, designers or the mass bands can have royalties and get paid from it. So we're not cutting out any of the economic benefits of designing a costume, but we're also not doing it in a way that is making the costumes unsustainable. So moving on to the event side, depending on the country, I'm using Trinidad because we're a Trinidad-based company as our baseline. You could have up to 200 pets. And this number is outdated. This is based off of 2020 Carnival, but as of 2023 Carnival, there was 218 events. So you could imagine with that, all the different sources of pollution that come with 218 events. You have two sides to look at. You have the wasted material sides, which includes your cups, the materials and props. If you have a themed fete, it includes the plastic utensils and food. It includes urine and feces from the bathroom, and then you have also the utilities. So we're talking about a lot of energy that's being used to power these large sound systems, stage lights, as well as water. If you're having a water or foam fete, you're using a lot of those sort of resources. And fun fact, back in 2017, I believe, WASA had to ban water fetes. WASA is our water and sewage company in Trinidad and Tobago, and they had to ban water fetes in prioritization of water scarcity. So that means like the resource we're using and consuming is real, and it's a threat basically if we were ever to be in face of a drought, which is more than likely something that can happen based off of climate change. So in order, the solutions that exist right now, we'll just skip that because of time, sorry. So I'll just talk about what we've done. So basically we've, in Tobago Carnival last year, again, Carnival costume recycling, that initiative has been our largest initiative, and we've more recently gone into the event space. So in 2022, last year, we started actually putting recycling bins and fetes with our partner TWL, Tobacco Recycling Resource Initiative, TTRI, and RWL, the Recycling Waste Logistics Company in Tobago. So they're a local recycler, and we partnered with them to put recycling bins in Juve and several fetes. Burner Boy came for Tobago Carnival last year, and so we were able to service that entire event. And we realized from looking at, all the events over Tobago Carnival last year and then Trinidad Carnival this year, the most basic thing that we need in any type of event, which is waste management, doesn't exist. So we're working on partnering with more people who are actually recycling and are in the waste management industry to bring recycling to all of the fetes that exist. And this is just a baseline solution because as I've observed different people walking around fets and on the Carnival Road for Trinidad Carnival this year, everyone held garbage. They held garbage in their hands. And after maybe like 20 minutes or so, we just saw people give up and throw it on the floor. So this is signaling that people definitely want to be part of a more sustainable event. It's not natural to throw trash on the floor, but when we don't have any solutions that exist to make that happen, then they have no option than to do that. um, so that's kind of our solution. And then other solutions that have been implemented globally are refundable hard cup systems. So instead of getting your millionth cup for your millionth event that you've attended for Carnival, there's a service provider that actually goes from event to events and has reusable cups that are used for different events. And so what other festivals have, how they've implemented it is when you purchase your ticket, you put down a deposit for your cup as part of your ticket fee. And then when you return the cup, so the cup is scanned as it like enters a bin, then you get that money back to your account or such. That is something that could be done with some feds if you pay digitally. I know a lot of carnivals and a lot of Caribbean places, we're not a cashless society, but it's a big thing. Another thing that is really popular is using like your food waste as well as like your body waste from the urine, those like urinals and outdoor like toilets, and taking those and actually composting them. So the waste actually becomes something that is able to grow trees or grow food and be turned into manure for farming. And then I already mentioned resource collection points. And then we have lastly the national decoration sharing system. So for your themed fets or events, instead of using that one time, we're actually having a shared warehouse space. So maybe someone who is like now starting an event for the first time can purchase from that warehouse space for a cheaper price. And essentially, we're not just throwing things away after one use, but we're letting everybody benefit from the resources and decorations that are available. So, in conclusion, creating a more sustainable carnival starts from reimagining the system from its inception. Whether we're talking about carnival fashion, which includes design, or events, which includes planning, you have to start with a sustainable goal in mind. So, do you want to you use recycled fabric in your design, or do you want to have a zero waste festival where there's no waste? You have to start by thinking of what sustainables you want to implement and then working towards that. After you created that sustainable goal in mind, then you have to measure your environmental impact. So, measure the materials that are going into your costume design. Is it mostly plastic, or is it organic cotton that uses less water? Or is it local material that you're sourcing versus things that you're sourcing from China? And similarly with events, are you also sourcing more local items? Are you using natural items? So instead of like plastic cups, are you like maybe providing bamboo cups? All these are different alternatives that can help you achieve the goals that you defined at the beginning. And then lastly, it's to test it out. With any business, in order to like stay competitive or to stay ahead of the game, you have to sometimes test new solutions. It's the same thing with sustainability goals and initiatives, testing out what works and what doesn't work. We have to take that step forward and test it out, and then the process starts all over again. And I just want to encourage stakeholders, whether you're a designer or you're an event planner or any carnival stakeholder, becoming sustainable doesn't have to be this big behemoth. So you don't have to go straight to planning a zero waste vet, but you can have a goal of, let's just say 25% of the waste that's created is recycled. And you measure that, you track that, and you work towards that goal. And then next year, if that goal is achieved, you can increase it. If it hasn't been achieved, you try to rework the goal or rework how you're approaching the goal. And same thing with designing as well. And so these are just some tips that we're sharing, and we have a lot of great things coming up this year in terms of Tobago Carnival in October, and working with Monday Wear designers, and just overall consulting in the industry. And we're excited for you to be on our journey with us. So yes, thank you.
Thank you so much, Danny. That was amazing. As you said, there we have these events literally worldwide, right? So not only carnival, but also on a festival level. So these are stuff that are actually very much needed and very much being implemented. So I remember, so I go to a lot of music festivals, and they actually do the reusable cup system now. So even for if you want to buy like a bottle of juice or something, they don't give you the plastic bottle. They put it in a cup, give it to you, and then they keep the bottles for themselves to recycle. So I'm really always happy to see like small changes being done for sustainability. So we have one question in the audience from Anushka. She asks, are these globally implemented solutions available in the Caribbean? If not, what is needed to realize this?
Yes. Great question, Anushka. And yeah, I go to a lot of music festivals too, just to speak to your point. And yeah, it's really cool to see that they do use that. They also even have fun events. Like if you pick up trash, a certain like a garbage bag of trash or something like that, you can get like free food or like discounts on different things. And so, to answer to Anushka's questions, all these solutions that are implemented globally, they're not right now implemented in the Caribbean. I've seen them implemented in Canadian festivals, UK festivals, and even some US festivals like Coachella. In order for the Caribbean to implement that, we're just talking investment here. We're talking for someone to invest in and adopt the idea, which includes some people to, like for instance, the refundable cup system. That's maybe a significantly larger investment, but if multiple FET stakeholders who are hosting events invest in that and split the costs, it could be something that they use and split amongst themselves for the multiple events they host throughout the year. And then they're actually even saving. So they no longer have to buy cups for a long time. Some of these, like speaking to the refundable cup system, have like 100 to 200 uses. So that's 200 events, and it's a long-term event investment, so you're not gonna maybe recoup the money in a year, but over the next 2 years and onward you'll recoup the investment. And it's going to take a lot of long-term thinking for all of these solutions to be invested, and not looking at Carnival as just like, let's just get money this year, but like, let's get money for the next 15 to 20 years, and also like sustain it. Because the truth is, if global warming and climate change really impacts the Caribbean like it's supposed to, we might not even have a carnival. So we really need to be thinking of these solutions, because Trinidad specifically suffers a lot of flooding. So we're not going to be swimming in our costume on the streets, right? So I think they need to take climate change seriously, and work with consultants or sustainable experts to help them co-create solutions, because they don't have to, think of all this for themselves, and then they have to think of this as a long-term investment. I hope
Absolutely.
that answers the question.
Yeah, I totally agree. It helps to co-create solutions and collaborate on general problems that we're all facing, essentially. So what would you say, what is the beauty of finding like the balance between a fun event and sustainability, right? So just a balance between fun and sustainability, because there was a slide that you had and you mentioned all of the things that are potentially harmful, and those were all the fun things, right? We're talking about loudspeakers, lanyards, glow sticks, all of those things. How do we find the perfect balance of making a few steps towards a sustainable event, but still ensuring that it is fun and the spirit of Carnival?
Yeah, I think like going back at the end, I think we can do one thing at a time. The fact of the matter is, there is not always a exact sustainable alternative for some of those things. Like I saw, or I know the person who's making one of the first like eco-friendly glow sticks, and that's now being created as a solution. So like one glow stick is like 20 US, and that's not affordable for like an event to give out to like, 300 people. So in that way, we might have to like take out glow sticks, but you could use perhaps drones, and like have different colored lights being like put on like the people, I think some of the solutions just take a lot more creativity, and I think that's the fun part. Taking creativity, and it also takes a little mind shift of the people who are attending the events. Like we can party with a purpose. Like you could have fun without damaging the environment. Like, do you really need the glow stick? um, and yeah, like what really makes the party fun, and um like what can you kind of live without? It takes a mind shift a little bit. And then are you willing to also pay for a more sustainable event, so like, okay, if we are offering everything sustainable, and because of like the current cost of sustainability, are you willing to like pay an extra $50 or whatever to make sure that you're, contributing positively to the environment? um, so, sometimes, or right as of right now, there is a slighter cost, but also sometimes sustainable solutions like the refundable cup system has cost saving benefits over time, So I hope that answers your question
It
too.
does, yeah. So I just love how you kept it all with partying with a purpose. That's
Party
so
with a purpose.
significant. So Danny, let everyone know how they can reach you if they want to find out more about sustainability or partner with your company. Plug all your socials, handles, everything.
Yes. If you're looking to be educated on a more sustainable carnival, you can follow us at Carnicycle on all platforms. It's written all over here. And then if you want to partner, collaborate with us, or be consulted in the areas of your events or your design, then you can email us at carnicycle@gmail.com.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Danny. This was a fun segment. Thanks so much for sharing about how to make Carnival and other events sustainable.
Thank you so much.
Super fun. Yeah, back in the Bahamas, we have an event, not kind of similar to Carnival, but also in its own lane. I'd say it's called Junkanoo, where every year different Junkanoo groups, they have like their own themes, etc. So it's very important to see how we can incorporate sustainability to this, but also ensure that the overall purpose of Junkanoo is still there, right? Because every year is a different theme, but how can we reuse and upcycle previous themes into our new themes? So these are definitely very interesting and creative, interesting problems that will require creative solutions. So hopefully there's someone in the Bahamas watching this right now who's inspired by Danny and her company and could do a little something about Junkanoo as well. So as we continue today talking about climate change, sustainability, and technology, I'd like to introduce our final speaker for the day. Her name is Esther. Esther is a passionate leader and information security enthusiast who's passionate about cybersecurity, cyber safety, and is currently the manager of enterprise IT risk and security at a top regional insurance firm in the Caribbean. She has over 20 years of combined experience in the financial, insurance, and telecommunications industries, where she led the implementation of IT systems, information security, and business continuity initiatives. Esther currently holds a degree in computer science from the University of Hertfordshire, alongside the designation of Certified Information Security Manager issued by ISACA. 3 words to describe herself is passionate, driven, and committed. So let's welcome Esther today as she talks about a cyber-centric view on climate action, sustainability, and technology. Welcome, Esther. I am really, really intrigued to hear about your talk because I would have honestly not really associate like cybersecurity with like technology. So I am like curious. I've been thinking like what are like the connections, but I think I'll just leave it up to you to tell us because I'm out of guesses.
Thank you for having me, Sonia.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I'll jump right into it. So just let me know. Right, I'm on. Okay, good. So from a couple things, we're gonna start off with a few buzzwords. Right, you can let me know if you all are seeing screen. Right, few buzzwords. So because we're gonna hear words that we often hear every day, but now I'm gonna tie that into climate action, sustainability, and technology and try to connect the dots for everyone. Right? I'm not sure what's happening, but I'm going. Screen. 1 second. It seems as though I am not moving. My screen is not moving.
Perhaps you can stop sharing and then reshare
I
it.
try again. Yes, let me
Yeah.
do that. All right. It has frozen. Let me stop sharing. All right, and let's try this again. Okay, let's try again. All right. Let me know if you're seeing.
Yeah, I'm just waiting for it to boot up and then I'll.
All right.
Yeah.
Good. Here we go. Right, so I'm just going to introduce some buzzwords or concepts so that you're not going to get lost when it is I'm presenting. Right. And that's good. First one would be, I want you all to consider, something is happening again.
It's still stuck again. Let's try. Okay, maybe what are you sharing? Are you sharing the presentation or like the entire screen?
I'm sharing just one window, just the presentation.
Okay.
Let me stop sharing and then close and then come back again.
Yeah.
I will close the presentation and open it again just in case.
That's such an IT thing, right? Switch it off and switch it back on.
Of course, that's the first thing we do.
Absolutely.
All right. With technology, you can never be, prepared. You just have to know how to maneuver.
You always got to pray to the demo gods before you make any presentation.
Right. Okay, let's try this again. If not, girl, we go with it.
No, we can share. We can try and share it from our end as well. So
yes,
there's options. No worries.
Very good. Okay, let me try one more time. So, is it moving now? Yes, it is.
It's moving, but then we can see your notes. I don't know if you want to share this. Yeah, so maybe just
something is happening. I'm not sure what's happening. Let me try again. Last time.
Esther, one of the things I would try is when you're sharing the window, make sure that you might either want to share your entire second screen, but if you're choosing just the window, that might be what's going on based on what I'm seeing.
Right. Okay, let me try.
Okay.
This one, share one more time. All right.
Yay! Is it working? Let's see.
Let me go.
She's sharing her whole second screen. She has two screens, so she's perfectly set up for this.
All right.
Yay!
Hey, all right, awesome.
Here we go. All
Bye.
right. So, thank you. So, buzzword. I want you all to think about this. I want you to act as if the house is on fire because it is. Right? The house is on fire. So keep that, and we all know who, or we're supposed to know who Greta Thunberg is, right? So, buzzwords. It's just to give you all an idea of words I'm going to be using so you will not be lost in the midst of things. Cybersecurity. What is cybersecurity? Everybody using that word, right? But it's essentially protection of information systems, network is, all the exciting things that are digital in terms of our computer infrastructure, right? And those are things that cybersecurity we protect, right? That's it in basic terms, right? Climate action, we are hearing that word often. This is urgent actions to combat climate change. And of course, it's a United Nations goal number 13 of the Sustainable Development Goals, which means to take urgent action to combat climate change and its impacts. Right? So we combating climate change as well as the impacts of climate change. Another buzzword, sustainability. Fulfill the requirements of the present without endangering the capability of the future. So for us who have kids, what we do now will impact our children, our children's future. So that's it. What we do is create sustainable options and actions so that it does live on and makes it easy for them well, not easy, but you know what I mean, sustained. In terms of technology, in the context of climate action, this refers to the use of scientific knowledge, engineering, and innovation. We heard from two wonderful speakers on innovation and technology to develop and deploy solutions that reduce specifically greenhouse gas emissions and promote sustainable development. So, all technology enables all our actions. In terms of the other buzzword, risk. So we can't leave out the word risk, right? Because it is about our risky business. Risk can either be positive or negative, because most times we think about risk as a negative thing, right? However, positive risks, also known as opportunities, represent potential gains or benefits that may arise from a particular action or decision. Negative risks, on the other hand, represent the potential for loss or harm or damage from a decision as well. So it's time to go. Let's move on. Keep this in mind. The most secure computer is the computer that's off. Now, I tend to disagree to some extent because somebody could come and thief that computer, could come and walk away with that computer. So it's not necessarily secure. However, we will leave it in the sense that if it's not on, you can't reach it. Right? Now I'm going to go into cyber incidents and give a synopsis of the Caribbean. Right? In terms of our Caribbean footprint, the average cost of a data breach of a company in 2022 was US 2.09 million. The Caribbean experienced 144 million cyber attacks, mostly ransomware, in the first half of 2022. Now, this is really alarming, and I'm not sure how many of you would be aware of it, right? So keep this in mind as we talk and we progress in the presentation. I would have come across this particular statistic based on a report that was done by IBM, right? And it's really alarming, really, really, really alarming. In terms of Trinidad and Tobago, there has been a significant increase in attacks over the last year, including high-profile, cyber attack. We all know the M word. It was in the news. Massey Group had an attack as well, right? Where the hackers would have frozen the chains computer systems. According to newspaper reports, it was over 216 gigabytes of data that was hacked. Most affected sectors for the Caribbean would have been our governments, financial services, business and manufacturing. So we would have had, I'm not sure how many of you pay attention to the cyber news, but it did come across mainstream news as well. Attack on the Jamaica's office of the Prime Minister. In Costa Rica, we had a government attack on the government from a ransomware group, Conti ransomware group. In Brazil, there was a lockbit attack, different types of ransomware actors on the Brazil Secretary of State of Finance in Brazil. Government of Peru. I mean, we tend to group Caribbean and Latin America region into one, right? And of course, right in our own back door, Aeropost. I got licked up in that breach with my credit card. I'm sure some of you did get touched with that as well. And of course, the other one that made the news would have been our telecom provider, TSTT. Right? All these is not me. These things were disclosed and put out in the media. From a perspective of Trinidad, in terms of cybersecurity incident reports, we would have had a number of reports that would occur in 2022, with data breaches being a top one, but the most prevalent cybersecurity incident that was reported, and this information was reported to our TTC CERT team, our Trinidad and Tobago Security Incident Response team, would have been phishing, and ransomware was a top contender as well, website defacements. But I want you all to know that you see, phishing is a very, very easy one, but very critical impacting on countries and even organizations, right? Business email compromise, you tend to get those in the corporate sector, especially financial institutions where persons are impersonating top executives. We do have that happening locally a lot, right? So we are shifting gears a little bit, and I want to share a quote from Ms. Rowena Haynes, right? The difficulty with climate justice is not understanding the rationale, but disentangling its implications. That last part of that statement, disentangling its implications. Just as how you said, you could not see where it is cyber fell into climate action or climate change. This is what a big thing that we need to understand. So we're going to talk about it. Cyber risks, climate action, sustainability, and technology. We usually hear the term cyber risks as it relates to personal data or hacks, but we do not often hear, what we don't often hear, is how these risks relate to climate action, sustainability, and technology. So we'll start off with climate action. In terms of climate action, we have data accuracy. So it was so good to hear all that information shared by my colleagues, presenters before us. Data was their decisions, or their actions are data driven. So the importance of having correct data and accurate data is critical for climate action. As such, for tracking emissions or monitoring weather patterns, and cybersecurity risk can compromise data accuracy, leading to inaccurate reporting and decision making. So think about if someone had gone into that lab and edited or maybe crashed the system where all your reports are stored, all your digital documents. Think about how devastating that could have been to research that was taking 5 years to do, right? In terms of energy infrastructure, the energy sector is a prime target for cyber attacks due to its critical role in powering our society. Cyber attacks on the energy infrastructure can disrupt operations and lead to power outages. We have had a few island-wide power outages. I'm not saying that these were a result of cyber attacks, but just think about it. Think about how a cyber attack could affect us. Think about that. It could have disruptions to our ability and reliability. Supply chain, we sometimes refer to that as, in the corporate or in IT world, we have supply chain with third parties or fourth parties, right? The supply chain is another area where cybersecurity risk can impact climate action. Attacks on the supply chain partners can lead to delays or disruption in production, delivery of renewable energy technologies, all the costumes from Carnival when China and the war with Ukraine and the pandemic, we see how supply chain affects us in Trinidad, in the Caribbean, when there's an event. There was also an incident in the United States, I believe, some time ago, from Tyson that caused, they had a cyber breach, a cyber attack, and they had to shut down, and it caused mayhem across the United States and even us, who import chicken products or meat products across the US and the Western Hemisphere, right? So that's for climate action. Now let's talk about the technology part of it. So in terms of technology, we love to hear IoT, Internet of Things devices. Everybody have Alexa, everybody have Google. Hi, Google, right? The Internet of Things is critical enabler of sustainability efforts, such as, for smart grid systems or smart homes. You do two clocks and your light come on. My daughter has an app on her phone that controls the bedroom lights for her, right? So simple things like these. Cybersecurity risk and compromise the security of IoT devices, leading to privacy and security concerns. And those two words, privacy and security, are buzzwords also that is happening a lot, especially when it comes to personal data and personal information. Then we have digital infrastructure, right? So everyone would, after the pandemic, talk about digital transformation. We talk about solar systems. We talk about making things more eco-friendly. We're going to have buildings that turning off lights when no movement is detected. And of course, those things rely on technology, building management systems. So in terms of digital infrastructure, we have data centers. It's critical for operations of technology systems. Cybersecurity risks can lead to disruptions in digital infrastructure, of course, downtime, productivity. Imagine if a data center was to totally go down. What could happen to, let's say, internet services? That everybody does get vexed when it is our internet go down, or we can't have, let's say, data goes down on your mobile device, right? More critical is the use of technology in power solar energy. So the energy grid more susceptible to requirements of technology to manage these systems, right? I know I'm talking a lot. So what's next? Alone we can do so little, together we can do so much. That's another point to keep in our heads. Why should cybersecurity and climate action be prioritized for us in the Caribbean? That's a question I'm sure not many people ask. I had to ask myself that, because I was like, why is everyone talking about technology, talking about digital transformation, climate action? And my focus is, why aren't they talking about cybersecurity and how we could enable with cybersecurity? And something came up. ESG, not ECG, but ESG. And what ESG is outside of the obvious from an organizational or government perspective. ESG represents environmental, social, and governance factors. That's not, pay attention to it. It's a buzzword. If it isn't buzzing already, it is around, right? It refers to a set of criteria used to evaluate a company's performance and impact in these areas in terms of environmental, social responsibility, governance factors. So what's happening is that rather than persons or financial performance of an organization, they are now assessing that organization, including in their assessment, their contribution to a sustainable and equitable future, which includes their support for sustainable innovation through their business models, as well as their emphasis on collaboration, inclusion. We all know about inclusion, especially as women in tech. So, so these are the factors that are impacting in terms of how it is we can drive, the need to include cybersecurity in our talks of climate action, also social responsibility. So the regulators and stakeholders, and customers, they're demanding accountability for all these things. They're not just looking at your financial statements and saying, okay, I get in my shares is going to be XYZ. No, they want to know what are you going to do for the environment? How are you going to help? So from an environmental perspective, we're going to talk about things like pollution, climate change, and waste management, how you manage your waste. We heard about the costumes that people discard, In terms of social, we talk about human rights and gender equality. And gender equality is also a sustainable goal. I believe it's goal number 5, right? We talk about community relations. How are you in social and corporate responsibility? How are you interacting with your community? Governance is what the G stands for, and it talks about your board management practices, regulatory compliance, and this is where cybersecurity comes in. Data security, transparency. People want to know, what are you going to do with my data? Are you securing my data? Do you have permission to use my data? So these are a mix of areas that companies or investors look at in terms of the environmental social governance factors. So what's the link? I hope I'm creating a link for you so far for you to understand the linkages between everything. And the link is cybersecurity and climate action. Let's start off with governance. I believe that ESG factors that relate to cybersecurity can create buy-in from corporations, because now, again, you're not only being assessed on your financial statements, you are also being assessed on your ESG factors, right? So in the private sector and governments, we talk about all these big COP meetings and 1.5 to stay alive, right? But what are you doing about it? This ESG component creates accountability for persons and corporate entities to report or to be mindful of their climate, their move towards managing their operations in terms of climate actions or climate change. So in terms of governance, cybersecurity can be considered a subset of governance. Good cybersecurity practices are essential for, we call it, that buzzword again, effective risk management in terms of protecting a company's assets and safeguarding customer data and privacy. Again, we see it, risk management of our customer data. And of course, we like to say, show me the money, right? It's important for investors. I'm not going to invest in you if I don't see that you are doing something good, or your operations are not aligned with what you are putting out there. So in order to see that, I'm not going to give you my money, right? So it's important for investors and stakeholders as they seek to understand the long-term sustainability of a company's operations, and its impact on society and the environment. Right? Again, we talk about risk management and effective governance. In terms of cybersecurity risks, so cybersecurity risks can impact the ability to achieve climate action goals. So the aspect of cybersecurity in terms of ESG, with the metrics also that you use to measure, to do ESG analysis, it demonstrates a company's commitment to sound governance practices and risk management. So climate action does not only, talk about, oops, I'm sorry. So climate action doesn't necessarily talk about, again, you turn off your lights or whatever, you have technology implemented, but how, again, what are you doing as a company to show that your practices are also aligned with sustainable goals, as well as our technology advancements, right? In terms of climate action, again, it does require the use of Internet of Things technology, such as smart grids, renewable energy. We talk about those things already. Public transportation, right? These monitor and optimize the use of energy resources, but also creates the risk of cyber attacks. So when we implement technology, yes, it does a good job. However, it also increases what we call our footprint or risk exposure to being attacked, right? A successful cyber attack on a critical, and we talk about that already, in terms of, let's say, our electricity systems goes down or power grid shuts down, these things. And let's say we do have, like, let's say we have a hurricane on top of some sort of cyber attack or so. Imagine what could happen if it is our emergency response systems are not prepared to deal with those things. So poor cybersecurity practices can harm a company, and not necessarily a company alone, the country or a nation, on a national level. If it is, you do not have proper cybersecurity practices. Of course, there's something called the reputational harm in terms of other countries want to do business with you because your house not in order, or companies on a more corporate level not wanting to do business with you, right? So again, these can negatively impact the companies, what they call the ESG performance. These can also be mirrored in the context of a country, right? And Caribbean partners, we have CARICOM. How are you relating, or how are you supporting your other countries' initiatives? So my country doing XYZ, but you're not doing anything, and all of us in the same region, and we are being impacted. So those are things that I see that can cause, little disturbances as well, coming out of, that ESG aspect of it. Right. So, how do we manage these technological risks to climate action and cybersecurity? So, we talk about all the negatives of, but all is not lost. There are things that we can do from a national level, from a Caribbean standpoint, to manage these risks. And where do we start? We begin at the beginning. We need to know what is in our environments from a regional, global standpoint. We need to conduct a risk assessment. So this can help identify potential weaknesses or threats related to climate change and ESG specific to our countries and our organizations, even at an industry level as well, because of course the manufacturing industry may have a different landscape to the financial services industry. So we need to assess our environment. Then we need to implement cybersecurity measures. So after you assess, you understand what your gaps are, you come up with a plan. You need to make sure and implement your cybersecurity measures. And this could be a whole entire talk by itself. But these include strategies across what I would like to refer as the three pillars of people, process, and technology. Governance being an area under this process, a major, major area. On an organizational level, such as network segmentation, now this is where the IT technical part is coming. You do your network segmentation, you manage your access controls, you implement encryption, and of course, monitoring of your network. So these are just a touch of it, right? Companies should also ensure that all devices and software are up to date. Again, a lot of these cyber attacks originate from outdated software, weaknesses in your system, all those things happen there. And of course, again, we are seeing where the use of blockchain is fastly going to help implement cybersecurity measures, but we'll touch on that in a little bit, right? Train, train persons, train your employees, train your family, train your parents on good cybersecurity practices. User awareness is critical, right? Everyone should be educated on how to identify and respond to cyber threats related to climate change, or in general. In general, we need to know. For example, in Trinidad yesterday, I wouldn't know if that's classified as a cyber threat, but our schools had several bomb threats yesterday. In that moment, guess what we had to use? We had to use technology to contact our kids. Our kids were scared. We had to contact the parents. We had to contact the teachers. Suppose our network went down. Suppose we can't access our technology in cases like those. How are we going to operate? But again, I run away a little bit. So let me come back to that. Brings me back to crisis management, right? We need to know, we need to be educated on crisis management. We need to be educated on how we respond to a security incident, right? Business continuity. Business continuity is not technical or IT, which is disaster recovery, but business continuity means after an event happens, how do you recover and continue your business? Basic. That's it. What do you have in place? Let's say technology is not available. What processes or systems you have in place to manage without that technology, right? And of course, those three things I call robust risk management pillars in terms of managing cybersecurity risks. Collaborate with partners and stakeholders. Now, this is a pain point for me personally because, us women, sometimes we tend to be hiding. We hide in our little groups. We hide in our little organizations. However, we need to come out. We need to collaborate. we need to be partnering with stakeholders, not just women, but our men as well across the region. I've noticed an absence of a data repository for cyber events, on a Caribbean level, right? We really need to do better in that. And companies and countries should come together, and other partners, private sector, companies, public sector, to ensure that all parties are aware of cyber risk and are taking appropriate measures to mitigate them. All of us, we are in the fight together. So that's why I'm thankful for the Trinidad and Tobago Cybersecurity Incident Response Team. They're a small team, but they're trying their best, to provide the service on a national level. Last but not least, right, in terms of incorporating cybersecurity into your ESG reporting. So companies should include cybersecurity risks, into their ESG reporting, demonstrating their commitment, of course, to managing cyber risk related to climate change as well. Again, remember, those investors are looking. Locally, organizations are making it a point to place, a section in their financial statements on cybersecurity posture of their corporations, any initiatives that are in train, of course, not giving out too much information, but they are showing that cybersecurity is a priority. It has board oversight. Those are things that instill confidence in investors and customers, of course, because we need to know our data is secure. Just a quick note on blockchain. Remember, I mentioned blockchain earlier. So a blockchain is more or less collaborative. This is from NIST, right? Tamper-resistant ledger. It more or less helps with integrity of data. So the transactional records or data are grouped into blocks, and the block is connected. Each block is connected with a unique identifier that is based on the previous block's data. So just think about it like little blocks connected, and each of them have data. Right? So let's say if a data set changes in one block, it changes across all the blocks. So it tells you can pick up at an instance if data is touched or the integrity of data has changed, or because it replicates. So how are countries using this? In the Caribbean, I have not seen it or heard of it being implemented here as yet, but countries are exploring it in terms of, how they use blockchain to combat climate change. For example, Estonia is using blockchain to track its energy sector, and Sweden is using blockchain to track carbon emissions. So this is a good one, accountability. So it tracks the carbon emissions of its supply or food supply chain. In the United States, several states, including California and Vermont, are exploring the use of blockchain for carbon credits and emissions trading. Think about it. Very, very different, innovative. Additionally, United Arab Emirates, I could never pronounce this word correctly, Emirates, has launched a blockchain-based carbon market to enable companies to trade carbon credits. Imagine that. So these are some areas, that we are seeing how blockchain technology is being used. In the Caribbean, we can use it to significantly improve our transparency. Everyone talks about transparency and accountability, and of course, to trace our greenhouse gas emissions. So when a country is saying, "Oh yes, we reduce carbon footprint by blah 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 blah," no, show me. We want to see empirical data. This is where blockchain can help in terms of measuring that carbon data. Now, I'm still doing a lot of research in it. However, so far it's really exciting. I'm going to dig a little more. I'm sure I'll share with you when I get through, right? So, in summary, I want to give you all the key takeaways, right? The key takeaways: assess. You have to assess the environment, whether you're a country or organization, a region. You have to strategize, make sure you have a plan. You must have a plan, right? Educate. Education and awareness is critical, right? Because all of us are in the fight together. We need to know what's happening. We need to share, right? And which brings me to my another point: collaborate. We must collaborate as a Caribbean country. Even locally in Trinidad, we have to encourage collaboration among private and public sector companies. And of course, sustain. When we implement, we sustain it. We make sure that we think about, the future. We make sure that there's longevity in whatever we are implementing to manage and combat cybersecurity risks. So, on that note, I thank you for listening. And you can reach me at email, ecalendargeorge@gmail.com. or I'm on LinkedIn. You just search for me, Esther Calendar George, on LinkedIn, and you can shoot me a message or so, and I hand you back over. Let me stop sharing.
Thank you so much, Esther, for that amazing talk. I am myself a software engineer, a woman in tech, so I wholeheartedly enjoyed this session, and I agree with everything that you said. The importance of digitization, the security, data accuracy, everything. So you mentioned a little bit about, well, not a little, you emphasized the importance of data accuracy, which I completely agree with. How can we educate locals within the Caribbean on the importance of collecting data first and foremost? Because I feel like that is something that we're not doing efficiently. So how
I
can
think
we, what
how
does
can
that
we help?
process looks like?
I think for us in the Caribbean too, we tend to not take things seriously unless something happens to us. We have this "what's in it for me" mentality. So a big part of that awareness is actually exposing them to the risks of what can happen to your data, what walking you through, exactly what can happen to you if your data is stolen, if it is, to show you how easily we give away our data. Some of us don't realize how easy we give away our data. We go to the cashier wants to give you a nice experience next time you show up, so you give them your address. Are you confident that that person's system is storing your credit card number, your address? We do online subscriptions, easy, every little thing. Our children, my children, I have 3 kids, and sometimes but I have trained them to do not give your information to anybody unless you ask me.
Absolutely. And they be
Right.
buying anything online, them games on the app store. Oh my goodness.
Exactly. So sometimes just giving you a little jolt as in the reality of what could happen with your data, how easily we give off our data, social media. We go on social media and we expose everything, right? Without knowing your background. You're sitting somewhere and you have a sign up, you have an IP address in the back there. People go on LinkedIn, they realize you're working wherever you're working, and they easy access. So
Mm,
education in terms of how it can impact you and how easily it is. Your parents who love to go through all those lovely little WhatsApp Samsung chats and fill out for a prize.
they
A
click
simple thing
any
like
and
that.
every link.
Exactly. Yes.
Absolutely. How can we increase, I would say, cross collaboration within the Caribbean in the cybersecurity domain? Because I understand that's a very niche field. There's not so many, but I feel like because there's not so many in each country, it serves a purpose to be a lot more of a collective body of people, right? So are there any things, for example, in your country, where are there any like associations that focus on cybersecurity?
So the TT-CERT, our Trinidad and Tobago cybersecurity response team, they're actually now doing a lot of work in terms of bringing more awareness to what they do. Because before people would think that because it's under the Ministry of National Security, you would think that, oh, that's a government thing, right?
Mm,
However, in terms of collaboration, because we have to make sure and put ourselves out there too. We have to go and seek each other out in terms of what agencies exist, because before, let's say last year, I had no idea what they did. But now they're more visible. They're actually on LinkedIn. They go around to schools. They collaborate across the Caribbean. So I think governments have a responsibility as well to ensure that they collaborate, that cybersecurity is a priority, not just when something happens or something happens to them, but across the Caribbean, especially, we need to improve our communication and awareness of how it impacts us as a country.
absolutely. I'm curious though, how did you get into cybersecurity? Because I remember when I was in my undergrad, I took a cybersecurity course. I saw that math, Esther, and I was like, nope, no thanks. So what is it that excites you about cybersecurity, and what got you into it?
So to be honest, I got into IT first.
Mm,
And it was, at the time, it was the money. We were making a lot of overtime. You're young, you want to make money, and that's where the money was. However, however, from a personal standpoint, I found that cybersecurity was a much needed field, and not many persons, or not many persons who had the skill set. So my natural self, I like to analyze, I like to investigate. I actually wanted to be a policewoman, but my daddy told me no. So that's not for you. And it's a good cybersecurity is a good way. What's a good way that I could use my skills in terms of I'm not that fast, but I'm good at investigating. My natural abilities come out as well, in terms of cybersecurity. Another thing is what people don't understand, or maybe not know enough about, is not all technical. So that's something that some people feel intimidated by. So you can pivot from any other field and come into cybersecurity. You could be in business, you could be in medicine. There's always something that you can pivot off of and come into cybersecurity, because I am not a pen tester. But I could look at your reports, I could look at your operations, and I could say, hey, you need to go and get this system pen tested. And then we call the pen tester. So there are different, areas in cybersecurity that, you could engage it in. I'm not a math person either, right? But I'm good at identifying risks. I'm good at drilling down. Math comes sometimes, from the technical aspects, and I have a mix of it. So my IT background as a SysAd system administrator also give that technical foundation for me to pivot off into cybersecurity. It was a little easier than most, but yes.
So you mentioned a little bit about pivoting into cybersecurity. What are some resources that you can share for those who want to get into cybersecurity but don't know what to start? Are there organizations, grants, funding to maybe go off to school, online resources that you love and always go back to? Like, what are your go-tos?
So when I first started off, I used SANS, SANS, and they are top. I actually got the opportunity to go and train there at one time, in their cybersecurity essentials course. And SANS is sans.org. They have a wide host of cybersecurity information, from technical to non-technical. Their user awareness program is excellent, right? And of course, you have the government websites, TTC CERT, Trinidad, the Trinidad Tobago Security Incident Response Team. They also have a repository of information for organizations as well as individuals to keep abreast of cyber trends in Trinidad. So, and of course, we are now expanding. I'm part of the Women in Tech Caribbean, so I try to join the meetings. So these are spaces that, we are out here, we are trying to bring awareness. And of course, exposure like this. After this, I did a talk last year. I got a few messages of, about persons. How do I get into cybersecurity? Mentoring also came up. Those are areas that also help, if women in the field come together and, we mentor younger persons, even guys. We don't have to mentor girls alone, but that's our priority, yes. But, those are good ways that we can get into or get resources for cybersecurity.
Absolutely. I always say, like, in the Caribbean, I think it's important to mentor everybody, because it's not like one of those situations where we have more boys than girls. We just need people, point blank.
People, that's
Absolutely.
it, yes.
So that is amazing. I was just actually checking the sans.org website, and it looks fantastic. So thank you so much for sharing that resources. Thank you so much for talking to us about the importance of being safe, especially in a very, very digital world and ecosystem. Super important stuff. Thank you so much, Esther.
Thank you for having me.
Awesome. So that concludes day 2 of the International Women's Day Caribbean Tech Summit. Today we talked a lot about climate, technology, and sustainability, from how technology and cybersecurity is involved in sustainability, the impact of Carnival in sustainability, and as well as microbes, which I thought was super interesting, something super new, and how we can use that innovation to help our environment in the Caribbean and beyond, because oil spills and stuff are worldwide issues. Come back tomorrow. We are talking all about Caribbean content trends, creativity, and new creative markets. So we have a nice lineup for you all tomorrow, for the artists, for the creative people. Well, we're all creative in some sort, right? So this one is for all of you. So please join us tomorrow for day 3. We have 3 more days after that. So we have so much more fun, exciting content lined up for you. Join us and follow us on all socials. Link up with the speakers after. If there was someone that was really interesting to you and you want to ask them some more questions or learn more about what they do or their business or their companies, please reach out to them. They are a lovely group of people and will be more than happy to assist you as well. So once again, thank you all for spending your evening with us. We will see you all tomorrow. Bye.